Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought that I would do the Your BookTube tag. This is a relatively new tag that's just started making its rounds on BookTube, and I will link the original creator's tag video down below. I was not tagged to do this. I don't unfortunately have the opportunity to interact very much with fellow booktubers. I try to watch and comment on videos when I have the time, but as I've mentioned repeatedly in the last few months, time is in short supply these days. It's all I can do to read and actually make my own booktube videos. So the Your BookTube tag was created to sort of give creators the opportunity to talk about their own process and the sorts of things they do to cultivate their channels. Question number one is, how do you decide what books to read and or review for your channel? Back when I originally started BookTube, I kind of had this thing going where every book I read, I made a dedicated video for that book. I'm sort of a fan of knowing going in what I'm watching, what the content is, whether or not it appeals to me, and that's how I decide which BookTube videos to watch. So that's kind of the position or philosophy I've taken on my own channel. These days, however, I've had to revert, or at least start filming some recent reads videos where I do cover 3 to 5 books in a single video. Otherwise, I'm making videos about books that have something to do with a category I've determined. So for example, I did a catching up with BookTube series where I read and reviewed specifically books that were favorites of other booktubers in 2018. I have an anticipated reads list out there, so if I read one of those books, I do a dedicated video for that. That's been kind of fun for me, right? To think of a theme or think of a project or think of a series that I can do, and then read books and review books that pertain to those topics. I am currently beginning a year-long project that is going to be under wraps for an entire year, but it will involve reading around 40 books, then talking about those. So stay tuned for that. Let's see how epically failed that experiment ends up being. Question number 2 is, are you organized or a seat of your pants kind of person? So I think anybody who's watched even 30 seconds of any of my videos can tell that they are entirely unscripted. I do not plan ahead of time what I'm going to say. I turn on my camera and I go, which means that my editing process is a nightmare. That said, where organization comes in for me is, like I mentioned, deciding what to read or deciding what to film and when to post it. I like to keep to a schedule. It helps. It has to help, right? Because otherwise I wouldn't get this done. This BookTube channel could not be part of my life if I didn't plan time to make it happen. I don't have the luxury of reading when I want to read and filming when I want to film. Like, I definitely have goals to reach when it comes to getting books read in order to have content to post, and filming and posting content. But as far as what I'm saying to you, the words that are coming out of my mouth, other than maybe practicing a video when I'm alone in the car talking to myself, I certainly haven't ever written anything down. And I think reading from a script would be the fastest way to alienate viewers for me. Totally off the cuff talking to you, just like we're a couple of people. Question number 3 is, what inspired you to start your channel? And it's 2 things. First is that I was reading a ton of books, and it kind of felt like I was reading all of these books and there was no reason, you know, like talking about the books that I read gives me purpose. Reading them and having the experience of a book is great, But talking about it and processing it is where the true value lies for me. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to give my reading an even greater purpose than just enjoyment for my own personal sake. Secondly, I started a BookTube channel because the things that I read were not well represented on BookTube at the time. I think that in the last 2 years, the BookTube climate has changed considerably, and I'm able to find a ton of BookTubers talking about mystery, thriller, adult, and contemporary romance, and things like that. Back when I started my BookTube channel in early 2017, that wasn't necessarily the case. And so I wanted to do my part to represent that corner of the literary world on BookTube. I know there's a lot of people out there that read the same books that I read. Whether they watch BookTube or not remains to be seen, but should they wander on over, I want them to be able to find content that pertains to them. Question number 4 isn't really a question. It is just walk us through a filming session. I film in my home office. I work from home every afternoon. Therefore, I have a nice setup here, a desk. I have dual curved monitors. You can probably see them in the reflection of my eyeballs. I just stick a camera on a tripod, set it on my desk. I can see myself right off here to the side, and it's great. The video goes straight into my computer. I don't have to transfer any files. I sit down, I ramble from anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, then start the editing process. Like I mentioned, editing one of my videos is a nightmare for 2 reasons. I don't script anything, so I do have a tendency to ramble. Also, when I'm thinking while I'm speaking, I have a tendency to take a lot of unnatural pauses. I just demonstrated it for you there. So during my editing process, I typically have to cut out all of that dead air between the words that I'm saying because I'm thinking while I'm speaking. I edit a video, it usually ends up being 75. I think the last video I edited was 75 cuts, pieces like stuck together. And then I design and create a custom thumbnail for every single one of my videos. And then I upload to BookTube. And then I try to remember to also do a Goodreads review, to also add it to my companion blog, to also post about it on Twitter and Instagram, and to also post about it on Facebook. Needless to say, that last chunk of things very rarely happens these days. I'm failing at social media. But videos are getting filmed, edited, and uploaded. I consider it a success. The other interesting thing about filming is that I do this every Sunday. So I read and consume as much content as I possibly can throughout the week. And then on Sundays, I sit down and I film as many videos as I have content to film. So sometimes it's only 1, sometimes it's 4. But my husband takes kid duty all day Sunday. Sometimes he takes them out of the house because I'm much more comfortable filming videos when I'm alone and nobody is listening to the ridiculousness that I'm rambling about. Then if I have time Sunday evenings, I will edit. If not, I have to edit in bits and pieces throughout the week and try to get videos out every Monday and Thursday. To keep things new and fresh, I will do, a little wardrobe change every now and again, maybe put my hair up when it was down, things of that nature to kind of make it look like I'm not sitting and cranking out one video after another, after another, after another. What's your favorite BookTube style or staple video? A review. Even if those aren't the videos that get the most views, and by far they are not. You are like, successful booktubers do not have only reviews on their channels. Like, it's just impossible. Me personally, I value a review. I value a discussion about a book that I liked and want to hear other people's opinions about. That's just who I am. That's just my style. That's my BookTube style. I very much want my videos to feel like conversations between you and I. I don't want them to feel ever like I'm just putting on a show and am completely unapproachable or out of reach because I make my videos impersonal. Like, I want this to feel like you're sitting in my office across from me and we're having a conversation. I don't know if I'm extremely successful at that, but that's what I'm aiming for. Question number 6 is, what would you like to see more of on BookTube? And all I can say is I would like to see more BookTube. I don't have an opportunity to see a lot of it, to watch a lot of it. Therefore, you know, I catch the videos of some of my absolute favorite BookTubers when I can. I can't honestly say what BookTube is lacking or saturated with at the moment. I just want to see people talking about books that they love. You know, I mean, I want to see some really deep conversations about books. I want things pointed out about books. I want us to talk about the greater meaning of a book, not just, hey, this book is about this, I liked it, and then moving on. I want to have actual, like, critical thinking discussions about the content of the books that we read, even if they're not literary masterpieces. I mean, I read thriller and mystery and horror and romance, and one might think, what is there to talk about that stuff? But you take a book like Inspection by Josh Malerman or The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, and the truth of the matter is there's a lot in those books to talk about. So what I want to see on BookTube isn't very popular, and it's not going to gain any BookTuber a lot of viewers, but it's the kind of content that I think is really, truly valuable, and that is just a breakdown, an actual breakdown, and digging in and getting our feet wet into these books beyond face value. Question number 7 is, when reading, do you take notes? And if so, how? My answer is no, I don't take notes. I went through a phase where I thought I was going to annotate. It just didn't take. I guess I could see myself doing that in certain types of books, but again, I'm a mystery, thriller, horror, romance reader. Like, it would just be really impractical for me to say, I'm going to take notes on this. I envy those people who can and who stick with it and make a habit out of it and really gain enjoyment from it. I think that it probably enriches the conversations that they can have about the books, because things are not just floating around in their memory, but they can actually reference points that they wanted to make. That would probably be really beneficial, but it's really unrealistic for me. Question number 8 is, where would you like to see your channel this time next year? We're taking this day by day, folks. I'm committed to doing everything that I can to still be around this time next year. I will have a set of twins approaching 2 years old this time next year. What can I promise, really? Like I said, the goal is to still be reading. The goal is will still be to have meaningful conversations with you about books. I would love to get more subscribers. I would love to make some amount of money from this in order to compensate for, you know, my book spending habits or the money I spend on shipping books to people. And, you know, I would love for that to be happening by the time next year rolls around. But again, this is a day by day thing. And ultimately, I just want to be able to still sit down at least one day a week and talk to my camera about books. Question number 9 is your best BookTube memory. There are 2 really great memories that come to mind. The first is when I decided to highlight my favorite series from my favorite romance author, Kristen Ashley. I did 1 video per day for 8 days dedicated to her Rock Chick series. And when I got to my favorite book in the series, it was the only time that I was brave enough to tweet that particular video, to Kristen Ashley herself. I had been talking about her books for 6 days, but I was too scared to really bring that to her attention early on. So I thought when I got to my favorite book that would be reason enough to get her involved. And I didn't know if I had done it and never heard anything, it probably would have broken my heart. But as it turns out, I tweeted the video about my favorite book and tagged her in it. And she had a wonderful response for me via Twitter that just, I think I went dancing around my house. Like, I screamed, I was excited, I was running around. My husband probably thought the house was on fire. I was that excited to even have been graced by a couple of Twitter sentences from her. In the same vein, I did tag Karen Dion in my review of her book, The Marsh King's Daughter. YouTube took that video down. Thank you, YouTube. I did tweet that video to her, and she and I had a really great exchange. She ended up sending me a link to an article she wrote. She told me about her time spent living off the grid in the Upper Peninsula. She was just a really incredible, down-to-earth person who took the time to talk to me about not only her book, but I mean, her life. And so those two experiences are invaluable to me. Like, one for the sheer fangirl nature of it, and the other because what we're doing here on BookTube, it matters. Finally, question 10 is why. More specifically, why BookTube? So I'm guessing this question could go a lot of different ways, but I'm going to take it two ways specifically. First is, why, of all the things you could spend your time on, are you spending it on BookTube? And that answer, I've probably already answered it, but I mean, I think that I love to read. I love to enhance my experience of reading by having meaningful discussions about the books that I read. I love connecting over intellectually stimulating stuff like a book. And so this is really enjoyable for me. And the second way that I'm interpreting this question is, why BookTube over any other medium? To me, this is the fastest, most time efficient thing. If I was going to do a written blog and I was going to do it right, I mean, I have a companion blog, but let's face it, I pretty much just post my YouTube video on it and then write a few extra sentences about a book. Like, it's so people who are fans of blogs can find me and my content. But if I was going to exclusively write a blog and I was going to do it well, that to me would take up a lot more time than this. I'm an instant gratification person, right? Like, okay, so let's think about this. I was an art student. There was always something about it. Like, I loved it, but I didn't like it. Like, I loved the concepts. I loved the finished product, but I hated every minute of the process. And once I discovered photography, it was over. It was all over. Like, that's exclusively what I wanted to be, was a photographer, because talk about instant gratification, right? You don't toil and spend hours over a photograph. The same is true of this. I can sit, I can ramble, I can throw it out there and see what sticks to the wall. It just suits my personality much better. You know, and that's shocking, because I never thought that I would be the person who could be comfortable sitting in front of a camera and talking, and then taking that and looking at myself for 45 minutes and picking it apart and editing it, and then confident enough to throw it up on the internet. I mean, that never, ever, I would have never thought that I could do that. You know, so I'm still that kind of person. This is me on video, but this is me on video under my control. And that's awesome. So there we have it. That is the Your BookTube book tag. Again, I will leave the original tag creators video linked down below. I hope you enjoyed watching me answer these questions. If you are a fellow booktuber, please feel free to join in on the fun and keep this tag getting passed along. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.